Usually, business strategy sounds kind of like a battlefield, right? You
Hmm.
deploy your resources, you capture market share, and you just aggressively crush the competition.
Right, yeah.
But what if the ultimate strategy relies on doing, well, basically nothing? Today, we're doing a deep dive into exactly that. We've got our resident strategic consultant here to unpack this really fascinating stack of sources.
Happy to be here.
We're looking at ancient texts like the Tao Te Ching and the Zhuangzi, modern systems theory like the DSI framework, and even corporate case studies like Huawei. Our mission today is to strip away the mystical religious layers of Taoism and see it as a masterclass in high-level business strategy. So, as a consultant, how does the ancient maxim Tao follows nature actually apply to setting up a successful business?
Well, to understand how doing nothing can be this massive competitive advantage, we really have to fundamentally reorganize how we view the board.
Okay.
We have to look at the business landscape through the lens of the layout, which we call Ju, and the momentum, which is Shi.
He and she.
Exactly. So let's start with the layout, the Ju. To construct a dominant business, you have to redefine the word nature. Because, when a Western executive hears nature, they immediately picture trees, rivers, maybe carbon offsets.
Right, ESG initiatives, that sort of thing.
Precisely.
Mm-hmm.
But in the context of the Tao Te Ching, the term used is ziran, which translates far more accurately to self-sowing.
Salsa.
Yeah, or that which is so of itself. It basically refers to the intrinsic, objective, unalterable rules that govern any operating system,
Oh, wow.
completely independent of human desires or ego or coercive force. So when Laozi writes Tao follows nature, he's establishing the ultimate rule of strategic architecture.
Which is?
Your organizational layout, your Ju, must perfectly align with the underlying laws of your specific market. You simply cannot impose a subjective artificial structure onto an industry and expect to survive long term. And if we look at the modern academic literature in our sources, specifically the paper introducing the DSSI framework, we see this ancient concept translated brilliantly into modern systems thinking.
The deep and shallow sustainability intervention model, right?
Exactly, the DSSI. It builds on the environmental scientist Donella Meadows' concept of leverage points.
Okay.
You see, most executives spend their entire careers making shallow interventions. They tweak a parameter here, adjust a KPI there.
Offer a new bonus structure.
Right, exactly. But these are shallow because they attempt to force an outcome against the natural flow of the system. The DSSI paper argues that a true leader, a master of the Ju, intervenes at the deepest possible leverage point.
Which is what, exactly?
They engage in what the paper calls pre-paradigmatic metacognition.
Okay, that sounds intense.
It's just academic terminology for a very simple concept. A paradigm is the invisible operating system of your industry. It's the shared set of assumptions that has all your competitors fighting a bloody price war over a shrinking pie.
Ah, I see.
And metacognition is just the ability to step outside of your own thought process. So pre-paradigmatic metacognition means observing the foundational flow of the industry from the outside.
Right.
You design an organizational layout that captures that natural momentum rather than fighting it. This demands wu-wei, which in a strategic context does not mean laziness.
It's not just sitting around.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
It means non-coercive action. Think of the case study of Huawei and its founder, Ren Zhengfei, from our materials.
Yeah, that was fascinating.
Ren didn't build Huawei by micromanaging the daily tasks of hundreds of thousands of employees. That's a failure of layout. Instead, he conceptualized the company's management philosophy as the banks of the Yangtze River.
The riverbanks.
Right. The role of the executive leadership is exclusively to build and reinforce those riverbanks. The banks are your core values, your compliance regulations, the incentive structures, and the water flowing violently between those banks. That's your employees, your capital, your daily operations. Because the layout is perfectly designed. Because it honors Ziran, the water flows naturally and autonomously toward the ocean.
So instead of trying to push every single domino with your finger, you spend your energy perfectly aligning the layout and let gravity do the rest.
That is the perfect analogy. You design a board where the easiest, most natural action for your team is the exact action that leads to market dominance.
But wait, what happens when a competitor tries to actively disrupt that layout? I mean, how does this survive hostile attacks?
That's the pivot point.
Yeah.
That is exactly where grand strategy becomes dangerous. And it brings us from the static design of the layout, due to the kinetic mastery of momentum.
The she.
Exactly, the she. When your riverbanks face hostile competition, you have to understand the core kinetic rule of Taoist strategy. The movement of Tao is reversal. Yeah. It's not just philosophical poetry. It's a structural law of physics and market dynamics. Whenever a trend or competitor reaches its absolute peak of strength, it inherently begins to decline.
Oh, like a pendulum.
Precisely. The text literally states, things age after reaching their prime. Endless, linear growth is a systemic impossibility. Trees don't grow to the moon.
Right.
So a master strategist does not meet force with force at the exact point of the enemy's maximum momentum. That's just a war of attrition. It destroys value for everyone.
So what do you do instead?
We look to the military applications, bridging the Tao Te Ching with Sun Tzu's Art of War. The strategy is orthodox and unorthodox. You manage your internal organization with orthodox, predictable rules,
Okay.
but you engage your external competitors with unorthodox, formless flexibility. This is where strategic softness comes in.
Ah, soft overcoming hard.
Yes, and it is so frequently misunderstood by modern executives as passivity or weakness.
Yeah, it sounds a bit weak.
It's the exact opposite. It is a highly calculated, ruthless tactical retreat. The ancient texts advise, if you want to weaken a competitor, you must first allow them to grow strong.
Wait, really? Let them get stronger.
Yes, imagine a competitor aggressively expanding, leveraging themselves with debt to attack your margins. The worst thing you can do is engage them in a frontal price war.
Because you're playing their game.
Exactly, at the height of their momentum. Instead, you yield. You allow them to overextend. You let them grow arrogant, bloat their overhead, and sink massive capital into a massive new footprint.
Oh.
You wait for them to reach that absolute peak because the law of systemic reversal dictates they must now decline. And simultaneously, you employ the principle of hiding your true strength.
Don't show your hand.
Right. The text warned, the sharp weapons of the state cannot be shown to others. You hide your R&D, your capital reserves. You present a soft, non-threatening exterior.
Just flying under the radar.
Exactly. You lull them into a false sense of security while they exhaust their resources fighting the friction of their own rapid expansion. You control the opponent without being controlled by them.
That's Sun Tzu.
Yes, you let their aggressive momentum pull them off balance, and when they inevitably stumble, when the debt comes due, you strike with absolute precision.
But if you are successfully riding this momentum and winning, how do you know when to pull back before you become the one who ages after reaching their prime?
That is the crucial question. It brings us to the restraint of power, the principle of Ziji, or knowing when to stop.
Z.
The Tao Te Ching explicitly warns that knowing when to stop avoids danger. Endless expansion is a systemic vulnerability. It stretches supply lines and dilutes corporate culture.
Makes sense.
Look at Huawei's international ecosystems again. They had the capital and tech to engage in scorched earth price wars to capture 100% of the overseas telecom market.
But they didn't.
They explicitly refused to. Because destroying all your competitors destroys the profit margins and the innovation incentive of the entire industry ecosystem. True strategy is coexistence.
Symbiotic growth.
Exactly. You have to maintain the health of the macro system upon which your microsystem relies. This requires a radical, deeply counterintuitive metric from the Tao Te Ching, treating a triumph like a funeral.
A funeral. That's intense.
Think about how jarring that is for a modern executive. When you crush a competitor or close a massive acquisition, you don't throw a lavish party or issue boastful press releases.
No champagne in the boardroom.
None. Because victory is merely a necessary temporary stabilization of the board. Statistically, it's a moment of extreme high risk. Over-celebration breeds complacency and arrogance.
And it probably puts a target on your back.
Exactly. It invites retaliatory attacks from regulators and new competitors. We actually see the power of this macroscopic awareness validated empirically in our sources.
Oh, the PLOS-1 study.
Yes. Tracking listed enterprises in China from 2010 to 2020. It showed that companies situated in regions with strong indigenous, Buddhist, and Taoist cultural influences organically demonstrate a notable inhibitory effect on corporate carbon outputs.
Even without strict formal regulations.
Exactly. And the mechanism isn't religious piety, it's the executive's cognitive map. Their layout implicitly understands that the microsystem of the corporation is entirely dependent on the macrosystem of the environment.
Right, they're interconnected.
So harming the macrosystem to enrich the microsystem for a quarterly earnings bump is mathematically illogical. It's a fatal strategic error. Knowing exactly when to stop extracting value from the system guarantees your survival within it.
So for the listener managing a team tomorrow morning, How does this grand strategy actually translate into daily emails and meetings?
It translates into a radical shift in your daily operational flow, centered entirely around the practical application of Wu Wei.
Okay, Wu Wei in the office.
Yes, it is the rigorous, disciplined avoidance of micromanagement. When a leader tries to touch every email, attend every meeting, and dictate every minor decision, they lose all visibility of the overarching momentum.
They get stuck in the weeds.
Exactly. They become trapped in the friction of the machine's gears. The daily execution of this strategy is what Laozi calls teaching without words.
How does that work?
Well, the texts warn that issuing endless directives, a constant barrage of Slack messages, exhausts the team. Many words lead to exhaustion. It creates a toxic environment of dependency and zero innovation.
People just wait to be told what to do.
Precisely. If your highly paid team requires an email from you to make a basic operational decision, your layout is broken.
So what's the fix?
You manage exclusively through structural design. You hire the absolute best domain experts. You aggressively remove toxic elements. You rigorously define the cultural guardrails. And once that architecture is set, you step back.
You just observe.
You must remain empty. In a corporate setting, emptiness translates to providing psychological safety. You give them the autonomy to operate within the banks of the river you built.
What if a crisis hits?
An amateur manager panics and issues a barrage of conflicting orders. A master manager practices fasting the mind, a concept from the Zhuangzi.
Fasting the mind.
Yes, they empty themselves of panic, observe the new, altered momentum objectively, and make one highly leveraged structural adjustment to the layout.
Just one deep intervention.
Exactly. If you execute this correctly, your team will navigate the crisis, hit the targets, and as the ancient text predicts, the people will say, "We did it ourselves."
Wow.
That is the undeniable metric of true leadership success. Your team believes the victory was entirely their own, blissfully oblivious to the invisible, masterful architecture you designed. So real power doesn't come from forcing outcomes. It comes from stepping back, mapping the layout, anticipating the reversal of momentum, applying softness as a weapon, and knowing exactly when to stop.
It really is a complete paradigm shift. And it leaves you, the listener, with that final, provocative thought to chew on. In a world totally obsessed with loud, constant action, maybe the ultimate competitive advantage really is just fasting the mind. Emptying it out, listening to the underlying rhythm of your industry, and letting your competitors exhaust themselves while you just wait for that perfect moment. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll catch you next time.